There is some anger in me that I'm able to touch on that gives us maybe a sense of danger or something at times. But I'm not a tough guy, certainly. It's a way of working that I have.
Gene Hackman was a force in Hollywood, a man whose presence could fill a room and whose performances left a mark on cinema history. He was known for his dedication, his seriousness, and his refusal to compromise when it came to his craft. But this same intensity sometimes led to real friction with others on set.
What are you doing next?
I don't have a project, Larry. If you have a script, I'll read it.
There's no script in front of you? No one's calling Gene Hackman?
No, it's probably all over.
So this is like the career ended on Larry King Live,
right?
Hackman was never one to back down from what he believed in, and that sometimes meant clashing with co-stars and directors. Here are 6 people with whom Hackman had real on-set tensions during his long career. With that background in mind, let's start by looking at one of the most well-known examples of on-set tension in Hackman's career: his experience working with the number 6 on the list, Wes Anderson.
I remember somewhere early on, I can't help but look at the monitor, but often what I want to do is look at the actor, and I remember in the middle of a take, Gene is doing this, I can see you frowning and moving around over there.
Gene Hackman's experience working with Wes Anderson on the Royal Tenenbaums is one of the most talked about examples of on-set tension in his career. Anderson, known for his unique and detailed directing style, often wanted things done a certain way. Hackman, who had decades of experience and a more direct approach, found Anderson's methods frustrating. There were moments when Hackman lost his patience, raising his voice and making it clear he didn't appreciate being told how to act. The rest of the cast, including Angelica Houston and Gwyneth Paltrow, later spoke about how uncomfortable things got at times. Despite the tension, Hackman's performance was widely praised, but he made it clear he didn't want to work with Anderson again.
I've always been considered an asshole for about as long as I can remember. That's just my style.
I don't think you're an asshole, Royal. I just think you're kind of a son of a bitch.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Gene Hackman, by all accounts, was a man. And by that I mean he had his fair share of hardships that toughened him up. On his episode of Inside the Actor's Studio, he's pretty candid about how his father abandoned.
Wes Anderson is a director who is known for his meticulous attention to detail. Every shot, every line, every movement is planned out in advance. For some actors, this is a dream come true. They know exactly what's expected of them. For others, like Hackman, it can feel restrictive. Hackman had spent his career working with directors who trusted him to bring his own interpretation to a role. He was used to being given space to explore a character, to find the truth in a scene. Anderson's style, with its storyboards and precise instructions, felt more like being a puppet than an actor.
Well, Wes called my agent a couple years ago and wanted to meet me. And so I had lunch with him at a hotel here in New York. And
the tension between the two men was obvious to everyone on set. Hackman would sometimes refuse to do multiple takes, insisting that he had already given his best performance. Anderson, wanting everything just right, would push for more. There were days when the atmosphere was so tense that other actors would avoid the set until it was their turn to film. Angelica Houston, who played Hackman's ex-wife in the film, later said that she felt sorry for Anderson, who was still a relatively young director at the time. She also said she admired Hackman's commitment to his craft, even if it made things difficult. Despite all the drama, The Royal Tenenbaums turned out to be one of Hackman's most memorable films. His performance as Royal Tenenbaum was both funny and touching, and it earned him a Golden Globe Award. But when the film was finished, Hackman made it clear that he was done with Anderson's style of filmmaking. He didn't return for any of Anderson's later projects, and Anderson himself has said that working with Hackman was one of the most challenging experiences of his career. While Hackman's clash with Anderson was widely discussed, his relationship with number 5 on the list, Dustin Hoffman, reveals a different kind of tension, rooted in years of friendship and rivalry.
I'll tell you a story about Dusty.
I know what you're going to tell. You're going to tell about the money you lent me. I know you're going to tell this fucking
Such
story.
a funny story, I think. I go over to Dusty's little apartment in Pasadena one time, and he says, hey, can you loan me some money? I said, yeah.
Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman go way back, even sharing an apartment in their early days as struggling actors in New York. But their friendship didn't always mean smooth sailing on set. Both men were known for being intense and deeply committed to their craft, which sometimes led to clashes. Their competitive nature and strong opinions about acting could turn friendly banter into heated arguments. While they never had a public blow-up on a specific film, stories from their early years suggest that their relationship was often marked by rivalry and tension, especially as both became big stars.
In a John Grisham version of Runaway Jury, since he created this world, the Roar character was just as rapacious and ambitious and sort of corrupt as the defendant's attorney, and certainly as Rankin Fitch, the Hackman character. And in the script, we evolved so there was more of a dynamic shift between the two.
Hackman and Hoffman were part of a generation of actors who changed the face of American cinema. They came up together in the 1960s, when the old studio system was breaking down and a new, more realistic style of acting was taking over. Both men studied at the Pasadena Playhouse and later in New York, where they shared a tiny apartment with another future star, Robert Duvall. Money was tight, and tempers sometimes flared. Hoffman has joked in interviews that Hackman was the neatest roommate ever, but also the most stubborn. As their careers took off, the friendly rivalry between Hackman and Hoffman sometimes spilled over into their work. Both men were known for their intensity and their willingness to do whatever it took to get a great performance. This could mean long hours, endless rehearsals, and sometimes arguments about how a scene should be played. Hackman was more instinctive, trusting his gut and reacting in the moment. Hoffman was more analytical, wanting to discuss every detail and motivation. When they worked together, these differences could lead to tension.
No wonder Dustin Hoffman had no reaction to Gene Hackman's death. The real reason is truly touching. His passing has understandably broken hearts. Many stars and producers expressed their condolences for the loss of this legendary Oscar winner. Tom Hanks wrote on social media, "There has never been a Gene Hackman type, there has only been Gene Hackman." Unforgiven director Clint Eastwood called Gene the best actor he'd ever seen. Dustin Hoffman, who was a close friend of Gene Hackman, did not immediately respond to the news of his death. This is because Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman shared a similar trait. At 87 years old, Dustin Hoffman isn't accustomed to expressing his emotions online, reminiscing about the times when the two of them first entered Hollywood.
One famous story from their early days involves a heated argument over a scene in an off-Broadway play. Hackman wanted to play it one way, Hoffman another. The director tried to mediate, but neither actor would back down. In the end, they agreed to disagree, but the tension lingered. As both men became stars, their paths crossed less often, but the competitive spirit remained. Hoffman has said that he always admired Hackman's talent, even if they didn't always see eye to eye. Moving from old friends to strong-willed co-stars, Hackman's time with the number 4 on the list, Richard Harris on Unforgiven, brought its own set of challenges.
No, I ran into some over the trouble. I spent a large portion of my life in fights, I suppose. One tries to avoid them. But I remember in New York, I was in New York, I got into a fight in a bar. But I thought, this is getting too rough for you, Harris. You're too old, you're 40, you can't do this anymore, you see. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do is get out of it. So the row started, and I jumped over the bar, and I hid behind the bar, because the punches were going like mad. There was a guy beside me, crouching too. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm ducking Harris. And the two fellas who started the fights were both under the bar, hiding behind the bar from each other, while everybody else was killing each other.
On the set of Unforgiven, Hackman and Richard Harris found themselves at odds. Harris was a legendary actor with a reputation for being outspoken and sometimes difficult. Hackman, playing the tough sheriff Little Bill, was just as strong-willed. Their different approaches to acting and strong personalities led to disagreements about how certain scenes should be played. The tension didn't spill into public fights, but those on set could feel the strain. Still, both actors delivered powerful performances, and the film went on to win several Oscars.
Now, if you were to point a pistol at a king or a queen, your hands would shake as though pulled. Now, a president, well, I mean, why not shoot the president?
You're not armed, are you, Bob? You've been talking about the Queen again? On Independence Day?
Richard Harris was known for his larger-than-life personality. He was a man who loved to tell stories, drink with the crew, and challenge authority. Hackman, by contrast, was more reserved and focused. He came to work prepared, expected everyone else to do the same, and didn't have much patience for what he saw as unprofessional behavior. When the two men clashed, it was usually over matters of process. Harris liked to improvise, to find the truth of a moment by playing around with the script. Hackman preferred to stick to what was written, trusting the words to do the work. Their biggest disagreement came during the filming of a key scene between their characters. Harris wanted to try something different, to bring a new energy to the moment. Hackman, who had already rehearsed the scene as written, was not interested in changing things at the last minute. The director, Clint Eastwood, tried to keep the peace, but the tension was obvious. In the end, they shot the scene both ways and decided in the editing room which version worked best. Despite the friction, both men respected each other's talent. Harris later said that Hackman was one of the best actors he had ever worked with, even if they didn't always get along. Hackman, for his part, admired Harris's fearlessness, even if it sometimes made things difficult on set. Their performances in Unforgiven are a testament to what can happen when two strong personalities push each other to do their best work. After working with Harris, Hackman found himself facing a new kind of conflict when he teamed up with the number 3 on the list, Sharon Stone on The Quick and the Dead.
I only wound your kid.
You're a kind man. Are you done?
I was planning to kill you anyway.
When Hackman worked with Sharon Stone on The Quick and the Dead, sparks flew, but not the good kind. Stone, who was also a producer on the film, had her own ideas about how things should go. Hackman, used to being the veteran on set, didn't always agree with her decisions. Their working styles clashed, and there were reports of arguments and cold shoulders. Stone later admitted that working with Hackman was tough, but she also respected his talent. The tension was real, but it didn't stop the film from being a memorable Western. Sharon Stone was at the height of her fame when she signed on to The Quick and the Dead. She was not only the star, but also had a say in casting and creative decisions. Hackman, who had been a leading man for decades, was used to being the top dog on set. The power dynamic between the two was complicated from the start. Stone wanted to make a film that was stylish and modern, while Hackman preferred a more traditional approach.
If you could write a letter to yourself, a piece of advice on resilience, before or after the brain hemorrhage, what would you say?
Oh, I would just say you're going to make it. You're going to make it. You don't know it, but you're going to make it. I would want to have known it so many times when I was on the floor and couldn't get an ambulance, couldn't get any help, when I kept losing in custody court and I had to remortgage my house and I didn't have any money. But I really learned that people can take everything from you. Your global identity, your job, everything you work for, everything you have, your family, your health, but they cannot take your soul.
Their biggest clash came over the tone of the film. Stone wanted to push the boundaries, to make something bold and different. Hackman, who played the villain, wanted to ground his character in reality. There were arguments about everything from costumes to line readings. At one point, Stone reportedly threatened to walk off the set if Hackman didn't cooperate. The director, Sam Raimi, had to step in more than once to keep the peace.
It's very hard to play a part like that and make it so smooth, right? And I think I did it so well that people thought, oh, she's just like that. And they thought it was so easy and like it was a nothing. Like I didn't really accomplish anything playing that part. I just showed up my skirt and it was like a nothing. But that's a really, really hard part because I have such a symmetrical face, right? Because I'm classically beautiful in my face. It's really hard for people to give it to me that I'm good at things, right? Because you can't have this and have that too.
Despite the tension, both actors delivered strong performances. Stone later said that working with Hackman was like going to acting school every day, even if it was sometimes a tough lesson. Hackman, for his part, respected Stone's determination, even if he didn't always agree with her choices. The film was a modest success, and both actors moved on to other projects, but the stories of their on-set battles have become part of a Hollywood legend. As Hackman's career progressed, his final film brought him together with the number 2 on the list, Ray Romano, whose comedic style was a sharp contrast to Hackman's serious approach.
Got to work with Gene Hackman.
Yeah, Gene Hackman was, so it's the first movie I'm doing, and I'm working with Gene Hackman, so I'm scared, of course. I'm scared now. I'm scared right now. Stop looking at me, this guy. No.
Welcome to Mooseport was Gene Hackman's last film before retirement, and his experience working with Ray Romano was not a happy one. What should have been a light political comedy instead became the unexpected final chapter in Hackman's legendary career, a footnote that many believe helped push the two-time Oscar winner toward retirement. The clash between these two performers reveals much about the evolution of Hollywood and the generational divide that can emerge when different acting philosophies collide. By 2004, Gene Hackman had established himself as Hollywood royalty with a career spanning 5 decades. From his breakthrough in Bonnie and Clyde to his Oscar-winning turns in The French Connection and Unforgiven, Hackman had earned a reputation for intense preparation, disciplined performances, and an old-school professionalism that demanded excellence from everyone around him. Romano, meanwhile, was primarily known for his sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond, where he had honed a loose improvisational comedy style that served him well on television. The transition to film was still new territory for Romano, and he approached the project with the techniques that had made him successful on TV, keeping things light between takes, improvising lines, and maintaining a casual atmosphere on set.
You were the co-star with Gene Hackman on his last film role ever in Welcome to Moose Point. Was that clear on set? Like, was he like, yeah, this is the last one?
No, not only wasn't it clear, I get shit for it. I get every now and then I look online, somebody's like, that cannot be his last movie. Cannot retire on that.
Why would you get shit about it? It's on your decision.
Well, I know, but they're blaming the movie was too late. Listen, the movie was a charming little piece and whatever, but some people do not like that I retired Gene Hackman.
Hackman, then 74, approached the role of former President Monroe Eagle Cole with his trademark intensity. He wanted focused rehearsals, precise blocking, and strict adherence to the script. Romano's more spontaneous approach, where he would often suggest alternative lines or keep the mood light between takes, visibly irritated the veteran actor. Director Donald Petrie often found himself playing mediator between his two leads. He would encourage Romano to stick more closely to the script, while gently suggesting that Hackman might benefit from a more relaxed approach. Neither actor fully adjusted to the other's method, creating a palpable tension that many believe comes across in the final film. While Welcome to Mooseport wasn't the only factor in Hackman's retirement, he later cited health concerns and stress as primary reasons. Many who worked on the production believed the experience solidified his decision to step away from acting. The film itself seemed to embody this clash of styles. Hackman delivered a performance with his characteristic precision and subtlety, while Romano's approach felt more suited to television comedy. Critics noticed the disconnect, with one review stating that Romano just doesn't have the stuff to bring off a role that requires a Jimmy Stewart or Tom Hanks. He's supposed to be overshadowed by his nemesis, of course, but Hackman chews him up and spits him out so effectively that the movie is glaringly lopsided. Maura Tierney, who co-starred in the film, later joked that it was the film that forced Gene Hackman into retirement, a comment that, while meant humorously, contained a kernel of truth, according to those present during filming. Welcome to Mooseport was both a critical and commercial disappointment, grossing just $14.6 million against its $30 million budget. For Hackman, it represented an inglorious end to a stellar career that deserved a more fitting finale. Shortly after the film's release, Hackman announced his retirement, saying he had no projects lined up and was effectively done with acting. He later explained his decision was motivated by health concerns, noting that his doctor had warned him about the stress acting was placing on his heart. Romano continued his successful career in television and gradually built credibility as a dramatic actor in later years, eventually earning praise for performances in projects like The Big Sick and The Irishman. He has rarely spoken about his experience working with Hackman, though he has acknowledged the challenge of transitioning from television to film. The legacy of Welcome to Mooseport serves as a reminder that great talent doesn't always translate to great collaboration, especially when fundamental approaches to craft clash on set. For Hackman, it was an unfortunate final note in an otherwise extraordinary career, a last experience that seemed to confirm his growing suspicion that perhaps Hollywood had changed too much for him to enjoy working in it anymore. Finally, Hackman's collaboration with number one on the list, director Barry Sonnenfeld on Get Shorty, added yet another chapter to his history of on-set tensions.
Oh God, I'll whack that just in case anyone can vaguely see that on camera. And it's you stood next to Gene Hackman brandishing a knife, standing over a birthday cake. And genuinely, it's one of the most sinister pictures.
Director Barry Sonnenfeld worked with Hackman on Get Shorty, and their relationship was often strained. Sonnenfeld has spoken about how Hackman loved acting, but hated many parts of the filmmaking process, like waiting around or taking direction he didn't agree with. The two had frequent disagreements about how scenes should be shot and how Hackman's character should be played. Sonnenfeld later described Hackman as one of the most challenging actors he'd ever worked with. Despite the tension, the film was a hit, showing that sometimes creative friction can lead to great results. Barry Sonnenfeld is a director with a strong vision. He knows what he wants, and isn't afraid to push his actors to get it. Hackman, by the time he worked with Sonnenfeld, was already a legend. He had his own ideas about how things should be done and didn't always appreciate being told what to do. The two men clashed over everything from camera angles to line readings.
And DeVito, but I directed a film called For Love or Money for Universal where every idea they...
Sonnenfeld has said that Hackman was brilliant, but could be difficult. He didn't like to wait around between takes, didn't enjoy the endless technical adjustments that come with making a movie, and wasn't shy about letting everyone know when he was unhappy. There were days when the tension on set was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. But Sonnenfeld also said that Hackman's performance was worth all the trouble. He brought a depth and complexity to the role that made the film work. Despite their differences, both men respected each other's talent. Sonnenfeld has said that he learned a lot from working with Hackman, even if it wasn't always easy. Hackman, for his part, delivered one of his most memorable performances, proving once again that great art sometimes comes from conflict.